Okay, very good. And I'm gonna try and if we can wrap things up by 6:20, which is 7:20 your time, okay? Pastor Yuri? Okay, great. Okay. Oh, I know it's not gonna be a problem for you. So I got that. Got that. Yeah. Hey, Dave Dowling and Linda and Gary. How you doing? Gary, where are you from? We're going to be talking about the NBA and the vaccine holdouts and how they're handling that. Their union acts that that's a non-starter. So that's very interesting. But we're also going to be talking about uh, the fact that the progressives are holding on and they're holding out for this $3.5 trillion Build Back Better budget. What is in it? And why should you be calling all congressmen everywhere, all day, every day to make sure that it's passed? So let's get to it, everybody. God bless us. Let's have a great show. And please like and share. Gary, hey, you know I love Detroit, Gary. Oh, love Detroit. I just feel very connected to that place. I love it. Oh, I love it. I love Detroit. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Love it. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I have a lot of dear, dear friends there. So love it, love it, love it. Mm, there you go. Zenobia, how you doing? Love that name. Linda, one of my favorite cousins. So we can turn it up a little bit. Can we bring it up just a little bit more? Okay. Sound like perfect. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Monday, October 4th, 2021. Autumn is here. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day, morning, evening, because it's dark outside. Yep, the times they are changing. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to call me. I want to hear your voices. I'm so glad that you all have been calling a lot lately. 773 763 9278 773 WCPT. All my brothers and sisters to the north and everywhere, including Detroit, Gary. I love it. I love it. And Ashley down in Memphis, push Memphis, love it, love it. And Larry Bob out in he said in Silicon Valley, I love you. I just love it. And everybody from everywhere, please call in today. We've got a lot to talk about. What about the NBA and the vaccine holdouts? Going to talk about that. And then what about Build Back Better? This is the time to push. Senator Sinema and Manchin want to move what was $6 trillion down to which became $3.5 trillion to about $1 trillion. What's in that? Child care tax credits, the expansion of what Medicare will cover, your dental, your vision, your hearing coverage. I mean, there's a lot in it, and they want to take that away because how do you? That's what you start doing. You start cutting. In the meantime, Senator Manchin has voted to approve every military budget increase since 2011, totaling more than $9 trillion. So how does that work? So I want to hear from you. Want to hear from you. What do you want the government to do for you, as they've been doing for Boeing and all of and GE and all of these other companies that are extremely wealthy off of government contracts? Think about that, everybody. Don't think that they just got wealthy because they know how to do business well. And when they go broke, they come to you. No, 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 no. They get government contracts, so they get your money all the time. So let's definitely talk about that today. Oh my goodness, and these vaccine holdouts. And what about that pill from Merck? I wonder if you take that instead of a vaccine. You know, we're going to be asking Dr. Deborah Holden and this wonderful panel about that today in just a few minutes. And of course, we have good news with Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire. Okay, everybody, let's get to some of these headlines so that we can get to the rest of the show. Hey, 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 A. King and Linda and D. Ray and Dave Dowling to the north. And Francis, sending all of you much love. Everybody, like and share, like and share. Please like and share. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 69 degrees today, showers. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 73 degrees, partly cloudy. Well, it is now baseball playoff season, and boy, our teams are in the mix. The Twins were triumphant over the Royals. The Twins 7, the Royals 3. Well, and the White Sox, they bested the Tigers. Sorry. I'm sorry, Gary. The White Sox 5, Tigers 2. Maybe better luck next time, right? And hey, clean sweep for us. The Chicago Cubs 3, the Cardinals 2. And the Bears won yesterday. What? 24 and the Lions 14. Well, we had a good time with Detroit, Gary. You know, I love you. I love you. And the Vikings, well, they fell too. The Browns. The Browns 14. The Vikings 7. The Supreme Court today begins a new term that could usher in landmark decisions on big issues like gun legislation, abortion, affirmative action. This happens as they are at a new low in terms of their public approval. Just 40%, just 40% of the approve of them. So what do you think? They had a 10-year high of 58% last year. What happened in this year? They have dropped quite a bit, but they are going to be looking at abortion, gun rights, the death penalty, religious freedom, so much in a conservative court. So pay attention to the Supreme Court. You know, we'll be talking about that this week on the Santita Jackson Show. Liberal and moderate Democrats are still at odds over crucial high dollar parts of the Build Back Better Biden legislative agenda. Remember, there are two bills at play here. The infrastructure bill, roads, bridges, but then there's personal infrastructure, which is Build Back Better, everybody. One is $1 trillion. The other that would help you directly is $3.5 trillion. Call 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Call all the congresspersons and let them know that you want both passed at the same time. Moderate Democrats have balked at the $3.5 trillion figure, and they want it to go down to $1.5 trillion. What would get cut, everybody? What would get cut? There's a new oral medicine that fights viral infection, and it could give doctors a big leg up in fighting COVID-19, everybody. This is from Merck. Drug makers Merck and Ridgeback Biotherapeutics say their pill can reduce the risk of COVID-19 hospitalization and death by 50%. Got to ask Dr. Deb about that. The Facebook whistleblower who released tens of thousands of pages of internal research and documents from the company has revealed herself as Frances Haugen, a former Facebook product manager who worked on civic integrity issues at the company. The documents have sparked a firestorm at the company and have even led to the Senate grilling a Facebook executive over the platform's effect on young users. Wow. So what do you think about that, everybody? What do you think about that? Who polices Facebook? Or do you think they need one? What do you think? There was a women's rally this week for abortion rights amid, as we are looking at Roe v. Wade possibly coming up in this new Supreme Court session. What do you think about that? Will that hold? And the Pandora Papers. Wow. These are the secret deals and hidden assets of some of the world's richest and most powerful people. People who are primarily heads of state. And in this cache of papers, 11.9 million files, you see the companies hired by wealthy clients to create offshore structures and trusts and tax havens in Panama, Dubai, Monaco, Switzerland, and the Cayman Islands. It's the exposure of 35 world leaders, including former and current presidents, prime ministers, and heads of state. It is a blockbuster report. You know, I'm so excited to have this man with us all the time. We're so grateful to have Pastor Todd Urey of Rainbow Push and senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church. You know, we have some iconic churches all around the country and churches that have been around for decades. When you get to the East Coast where the country was founded, that's what you see. And you go to Philadelphia, you go to New York, you go and you see these churches that have been standing for more than 100 years. Douglas Memorial is one of these churches. And indeed, it's one of the iconic churches in the United States, and he is their senior pastor. Pastor Todd Geary, we need some good news today. We need it. We need it every day. Helps give us a good lift, and you do it. There's no one who does it better. What's on your mind today? Mm, mm,
Now with you and your listeners this morning. So let's go on and kick it off. Good
love it.
morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities. Come on now. It's Monday morning. Stop pushing snooze. Can't sleep through your day because you are going to leave a mark on the world today. Let's get up. Let's get moving. Put your feet on the floor. Feel that cool feeling coming back through your feet when you put your feet on the floor. Get that morning Joe, that morning beverage going. Take a deep breath. We call that breath life. You're alive. So go ahead and get excited about it because there are things for you to do. And this is going to be your day. Santita, you said something just a few minutes ago during the segment about the news, about it being playoff season. Playoff season, baseball. Favorite time of year because after you go through 162 games or so, I don't think they play. They may have played a full season this year,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, some of those games are not very interesting. They don't have a lot of appeal. But when you get to playoff season, the interest is heightened. Peter, there's a lot going on, but I wanna say to you that you just don't jump to playoff season. You got to play every game of the regular season to position yourself to win a championship. And I don't want you to look past today on the way to what you see ahead of you. I need you to focus on today so that you can make today a key pillar of the greatness that is indeed coming your way. The way you get to the playoffs is first you've got to build your strength. That's called training. And then you have to demonstrate your stamina. That's the ability to play the entire season. But ultimately, what it comes down to is resolve. The one thing that separates the mediocre from the great is not talent. It's not strength. It's actually mindset. What are you focused on today? What are you thinking about today? We have goals and we have expectations and we have dreams. We have all of those things that allow us to pursue life with the best of what's there. But here's what I want you to remember today. What you see, I learned this in pitching because I played Little League Baseball and I was left-handed, so I guess they thought it was kind of exotic to have me pitch. Obviously, that didn't work out real well because now I preach for a living, but we'll keep on going. But my pitching coach told me, and I'm going to leave this with you, and then we got to run. My pitching coach told me as I was learning to throw the ball, sometimes the ball would be errant. It would just kind of go. It would spray. And he came to the mound one day and asked me a simple question. What are you looking at when you throw the ball? And I said, what do you mean? He says, always remember to keep your mind trained on the thing that you're trying to hit because you will hit what you see.
Mm.
I want to say that to all of you today. Stay focused. Don't get distracted. Don't get discouraged. Keep your eye on the prize of that goal for today because this day will move you one step closer to that championship called purpose and destiny. You are well on your way. You've demonstrated your commitment. You've trained. You've persisted, you persevered, and now you're going to stay focused. And as you stay focused, remember, you will hit what you are aiming for. Aim for greatness, aim for goodness, aim for service, aim for all of those things that set you apart, because God has set you apart with a fingerprint that's on your life that is uniquely you, because you're a lot like everybody else, but you are one of a kind. Go ahead and change the world, leave a mark, and remember, you got somebody rooting for you because it's playoff season. It's time to win the championship called life. Go after it, go get it, and remember, stay focused. That's all I got, Santita. Have a great day.
Ooh, that's a whole lot, Pastor. What are you looking at? Ah, we all need that coach, someone who can be outside of ourselves, Pastor, and say, hey, 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 I see something. I see you. I see you. What are you looking at? It's those little things. And I know it changed everything. Wow. And I'm glad you're preaching. So you sure do have an anointing on your life, everybody. What are you looking at? What are you nursing? I was talking to someone yesterday, and I heard a laundry list of complaints, and I heard them, and I said, you know what? You're nursing that, and that's all we're going to get out of this conversation. Please don't do that. Let's move toward that which is positive. Let's count these blessings, as my father says, and don't celebrate these cursings. Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire, Senior Pastor of the Douglas Memorial Church, Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland. What a blessing he is to us. Everybody, let's talk to Dr. Deborah Verholden before we start talking about the NBA and the vaccines. And that's become quite the big issue. Indeed, the NBA Players Association said that vaccine mandates for them, that's a non-starter. But where it gets interesting for them is in the cities in which they play, where increasingly there are vaccine mandates. But before we get there, there's been some big news, Dr. Deborah Verholden, renowned epidemiologist, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University, coming out of Johns Hopkins University. We're so privileged to have you with us every day. Merck said a year ago, we are not going to be in the vaccine development space. We've not been able to find a vaccine that is up to Merck's standards. Of course, Merck is one of the leading pharmaceutical companies in the world. So they said, what we are going to do is concentrate on therapeutics. And some months ago, we heard that they had come up with something that might work. Well, now they're very, very excited because they say they have an experimental pill that cuts the worst effects of COVID by up to 50%. Is that something that excites you, Dr. Deborah Verholden? And would this pill replace the vaccine? Would it be used, or would it be like Tamiflu? If you get COVID, you take this. Please help us to explain what we're looking at. Please explain what we are looking at so we can understand it. Are you on mute, Doctor? Dr. Verholden?
I was being really brilliant too. I was just bringing it all on mute, giving it all to the mute button.
It's good hearing your voice.
If the question is, I know, sorry about that.
That's all right.
So if the question is, should this be something that people can look towards in lieu of the vaccine? I would say no.
Okay.
Right. And here's why I would say no, because the very first thing that we want to focus on is prevention, right? And I feel like the place that everybody's been going throughout this whole pandemic is they've been looking for the next better mousetrap to get them off the hook and be able to get back to the way things were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think what the mistake that we've made, we got rid of mask mandates when the vaccine came out. I think that was a huge mistake. We went off the stay away at home order once rates got to a certain point, but they didn't get low enough where community spread stopped. All that did was buy us a couple months before things got back up. And, we've been open, closed, up, down, all of that. So I do think it's good that Merck, has joined the fight and doesn't have all their eggs in the one basket. They decided to get out of the crowded field called the race to develop a vaccine. So it looks promising, right? Like I did a little bit of research, and it looks promising. This pill looks like it's got good, preliminary evidence that it will cut the risk of hospitalization and cut the risk of death. That's really great. I would still, this to me is adding go back to the Swiss cheese model.
Mm-hmm.
No one layer is perfect. They've all got holes in them. But as you start to stack them up, you start to build a wall of protection, and then you start to be able to improve the chances that we can now figure out and learn how to live with this thing. So I think this will be an important addition to the party, but I don't think any one thing is going to solve all the problems. I think we need all of the layers happening at the same time, at least many of them happening at the same time.
So then my question would be this. If you have been vaccinated, would you still be able to take this pill if you contract COVID-19?
Absolutely. According
Okay.
to what the data say, yeah, it's independent of whether or not you've been vaccinated. You know, people who get vaccinated, the course and the treatment for COVID is what it is.
What is the course and the
Right.
treatment for COVID?
Well, it varies per person. It
Okay.
really does vary per person, and it also is dependent upon what problems the person is having, right? So most people who contract COVID, the biggest issues that they're dealing with are issues around their breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this, which would take a whole lot of time, what's called the cytokine storm that happens when the immune system gets overamped up. That's a whole different problem and a whole different set of treatment, a whole different type of treatment that's required there. So you're treating whatever is the thing that's, become problematic for the person.
Okay.
And for most people, it is issues around breathing. But we learned in COVID, so many people who were in COVID had to go on dialysis.
Yeah. Or,
They had problems with their kidneys.
and we've seen
The
cancer,
brain
right?
fog issues. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen like
Say that again?
everything that, but you know what? That's interesting. Let me ask you this, doctor, because it seems that what my mother said, just as she continues on her journey toward wellness. Thank you, praise the Lord for that. She said, this disease is tailor made for you. Whatever issue you've got, she said, this is why she said, I can see the stresses on the hospital season because they have to look at what is particular to you, your own particular issues, and they must treat
Yeah.
those. Is that because that was her experience? And from what I'm hearing from different people,
Yeah.
that's been their experience too. What say you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And this is why, I try to explain to people, and I have so many people that call me, people I don't even know. I get so many messages on my Twitter account and my Facebook Messenger, and because all of those accounts are public and anybody can message me there or reach out. And I've had so many people that wanted to reach out, and sometimes they just wanted to tell me their story.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to tell me what happened. They want to say, hey, I'm really glad, that you encouraged me to get the vaccine, but you didn't force it because this is what happened. And then they'll tell me a story. A guy reached out to me, told me the story of him and his wife both contracting COVID and how much trouble she had and still has, and how he contracted COVID as well, but how he recovered. And now the issues that she's having, it's so different. I've heard everything from, I have a friend who's having kidney problems now. She's also having trouble breathing. And she was somebody who's very vocal that she was a no to the vaccine. She needed more time. She was not against anybody getting it, but she herself had made the decision no for her and her family. She contracted COVID from her daughter, who went back to school and brought it home. Her daughter's 13. She was unvaccinated, even though she's eligible. Brought it back home to my friend and to her mother. Her mother is in her 60s. Her mom was vaccinated. Her mom has hypertension and diabetes. Her mom had flu-like symptoms for 3-4 days and was okay. My friend is still suffering with, she was down for almost 3 weeks and is still suffering with the long-term consequences. So, and again, like I said, now she's having kidney problems. She's never had kidney problems in her life. So we just don't know. But I agree with your mom. It will go, and it will do to you what it can do to survive and do what these viruses try to do. They just want to take over.
Everybody?
So it might attack your kidneys. It might attack my lungs and brain. I might have real bad brain fog, and you might have kidney problems
or heart. I mean, you don't know
or
because
heart problems.
it's tailor made for
Yep.
you. It's tailor made for you. But you know what? We're going to be talking about the NBA. We're going to bring on attorney C.K. Hoffler and Dr. Shanina Knighton joining of course, this is a segment for Dr. Deborah Holden. We want to talk about these vaccine holdouts and what's happening with the NBA, because this is when we are seeing where Dr. Deborah Holden said, I think we're going to see some problems here, where you're seeing where the vaccine mandates, the tremendous impact that they have, right? And you can see some of the problems they have going forward. And you also see a very black league, and you see a black sensibility being played out. So we've got a lot to talk about here. What about the NBA and the vaccine mandates and the vaccine holdouts? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Dr. Deb?
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to send you an article that I came across that showed that it's from PBS that COVID is killing rural Americans at twice the rate of urbanites. And I'd like for you to look at, I want to talk with you about that. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, because that's like at the heart of equity for you. Right? And, but and then so much of America is not urban. America's a healthy mix. It's a healthy mix, but wow. Because they're closing hospitals and medical treatment centers, particularly in these outlying areas, in these non-urban areas. And this is where you see that we should be so far ahead in terms of health in the United States. We should not be where we are. This is so ridiculous. Ugh. So awful. Well, tonight we are going to be talking about R. Kelly at 6:00. Dr. Deb, I hope you can join us on that. We will be talking about the R. Kelly trial, of course. Really helping to lead us through that will be Attorney C.K. Hoffler. That will be at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, let's talk about it with Santita Jackson and friends. We're going to be doing that today. This evening.
That's been a long time coming.
I know, girl. And it will be a quick 45 minutes, but I want you all to get involved. Continue to check on my page, and I'm going to send this information to you, Dr. Deb, so that you can post it on your social media, because we want to have a discussion about that. And it won't take too long. But it'll be full of information, and want to get your thoughts about it, everybody. Ooh.
I'm sending Dr. Knighton and Attorney CK through.
Okay. Attorney Hoffler and Dr. Knighton.
Good morning.
You know what?
Good morning.
I got to tell you, I love Dr. Knighton's voice. She sounds like a little baby, and she looks like one too. And then when you know her credentials, you just want to pass out. You're like, something that's not just a little baby. I just want to put her in my arms and just rock her. Oh my goodness.
That's a great thing.
Girl, no, when I met her, girl, you don't look like you're a grandma. What were you talking about? Talking about these black women who grandmamas at 15. You look like a baby. I mean, I just pray that God continues to give you time. Because I grew up with my grandmothers too, because they were young grandmothers. And what a blessing. What a blessing. I had them for a long time. A long time. And it's just a blessing. So I'm glad to be with you all today. Well, we have a lot to talk about with these NBA, with the vaccines. CK, do you know Michelle Roberts? She's the executive director of the NBA Players Association.
Back in 60.
She seems like she's in your wheelhouse.
I've met Michelle. I'm not close to her.
Okay.
But I've met her. I do know her, but I'm not. She's not someone who I frequent. Our paths have crossed quite a few times.
When I read about her, she sounded like you're someone who would be in your wheelhouse. So
I think a common person is Charles Ogletree. And
how is he doing?
Yeah, so I think they're the same, probably not very well. We honored him a few months ago.
Okay.
And his wife accepted that he was there, but I'm not sure I'm not sure if his communication is where they'd like it to be. But
unbelievable.
He's there.
10 seconds.
Okay, stand by. Everybody, you remember, of course, And he's still with us, Charles Ogletree, the brilliant Harvard Law professor. Sending love and prayers to his family today. He's got Alzheimer's, everybody.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about the vaccine mandates and the NBA. This is America's game, really. You've got baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, NBA. You really do. And what a sport it is. And we all love it. And we've all eyes on the NBA because the season is beginning, but also because we're watching in this pandemic an issue with vaccine mandates. 90%, according to NBA, according to NBA data, 90% of the players are vaccinated. But you have a vocal minority who are not vaccinated. And in fact, some of the most prominent players who are vaccinated, LeBron James was a holdout. And he said, when people said, well, you know, you're not encouraging people to get vaccines, he said, that's not my job. That's personal. And you see a lot of people who appear to have gotten vaccinated reluctantly. And then you have some very prominent holdouts, like Kyrie Irving, one of the biggest players in all of the NBA from the Brooklyn Nets, NBA champion, a 7-time All-Star. He's become the face of a vocal minority. What do you think about that? Does he have the right to do that? Do you think he is right to do that? It's going to cost him and other players who will not be able to play in games where you have to have a vaccine in order to be in the building. It's going to cost them millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. What do you think about that? Well, the NBA Players Association, headed by Michelle Roberts at this time, they're about to get a new president. She is a prominent lawyer. She's their executive director. As they were negotiating with the NBA about the vaccine mandate, she said that's a non-starter. Even with the vaccinated players, they do not want a mandate in place. Wow. So what does all of that mean? I want to hear from you. 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT, GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text, but I want to know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts? Because you have a lot going on. Dr. Deborah Verholden, I'm going to pass this around to the whole panel. But what are your thoughts about this? Is this a public health issue? Because, you know, I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, the problem as I see it here, is a couple things. Number one, I want to say that the NBA is ahead of every other industry, the sport, professional sports, the NBA, the NFL. They've got numbers in the 90s of players that are vaccinated. We don't even have that in hospitals.
That sounds awfully high to me. That sounds awfully high.
We don't have that nowhere. There's nowhere else that I know where you can say we got 95% of the people vaccinated, right, as an industry or a league or anything like that. So I want to acknowledge that first. The other thing that I want to say is, because so many people, the NBA, and it's really been cool to watch how some of these players, especially the minority players, some of them have really used their voice to take up the mantle for social justice. And it's been very awe-inspiring, right? From Colin with the kneel to other players, really speaking out in really bold ways. A lot of these players also put a fair amount of money behind some of these causes. So that's been a really cool thing. I think with the vaccine, though, it's a little bit different because there has been so much reluctance, not among those players, among Americans, among our global citizenry, about the safety and effectiveness of this vaccine. Is it really going to do me more good than harm? Is it really what they say? It went too fast. All the things that we already talk about. When you factor that in, you then have people who normally have no problem opening their mouths, taking a point of view, standing for something, saying, not on this one. I think that's what we're seeing. Not on this one. And not only do they say not on this one, people who are normally also very vocal aren't even willing to come forward and talk about their own status because they just don't want to be in the fray of this. Nobody wants to be the person if we find out in 10 years that this vaccine had some unforeseen longer range, and that has happened. It's very, very rare. Most of the time when there are negative effects from vaccines, they tend to show up pretty soon relative to when the person gets vaccinated. One or two minor examples of where the effect didn't show up till 5 or 10 years later, right? But nobody wants to be the one who stood on the block and said, everybody needs to get this thing. Everybody should get it. It's safe. It's effective, because it was tested really fast. It is a new technology, all of that. People don't want to do that. You know, even people like me, from a public health perspective, I want everybody to get vaccinated. Everybody who medically can, I want them to get vaccinated. But I also think that people have rights, and they should be able to make a choice about that. And that the job that people like me and others in public health and public policy need to do is to assuage all of their concerns and to give people freedom of choice. And we need all the other layers of protection in place. So with the NBA, I think what we're seeing is people are saying, some people, again, remember, their player vaccination rate is like over 90%. But a lot of them are still saying no. Like, they still just don't trust it. They
You know,
still just
because
don't trust it. And the last thing I'll say is they're making a huge... Go ahead.
Well, no, because I was going to say, because it seems to me this is the part of the challenge when people have to take something under duress, right? Because they did not trust it. And these guys, they are newly moneyed. They are from the heart of the Black community. So I think that when you talk to them, you kind of touch a vein that's deep in the Black community. It's a very, it's like a very, very Black sport, right? Just in terms of its style and flavor, certainly when you watch it on TV, not necessarily when you go see it in person, but that's another story, everybody. And so I think you're tapping into going deep into the culture. That's what I'm trying to say, Dr. Deb.
Yeah. Well, they've also made a huge mistake in only requiring regular testing for unvaccinated players. All of these types of behaviors are, especially for the holdouts. You know, when I say the holdouts, I mean the people who remain a no, right? They're just fueling this notion that nothing that y'all are doing even matches the so-called science. Because we now know about breakthrough cases, and with Delta, we're seeing more and more of those. Yeah, you're more likely to contract COVID if you're unvaccinated, but you can still contract it even if you're vaccinated. So then to add in this other thing, it almost feels like it's punitive. Like we went from the carrot model, right? We were trying to incentivize people, and now they're just bringing the stick. We're going to make it as uncomfortable, hard, and miserable for all you people that won't get vaccinated as we can. And I think for a lot of those people, that is not the approach that's really going to sway them. And for even the ones that did sway them, people are left feeling some type of way about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Knighton, your thoughts? Because, I mean, testing the unvaccinated as opposed to the vaccinated, when you know that everybody can get it, maybe you carry the viral load differently, but, So what do you make of this?
So that's always been disturbing to me, the fact that we're not, I was going to say, let me start with the NBA and just their decision. I think it is individual choice. And the one thing that we have to consider in this is that we're talking about athletes, okay, that do work out on a regular basis, have personalized chefs 9 times out of 10, have specialized diets, are aware of their health because it impacts their play. And it's not to say that they are exempt from COVID, but I think that this is an equity issue here too. And I'm sure that no one wants to really touch on it. But when we talk about access, okay, I have to remind people that I was very upset at the beginning of the pandemic when healthcare workers couldn't even get access to COVID tests, but you had athletes that had access to all the COVID tests. Okay, so I think that this is an equity issue, especially when we're talking about treatments, right? So they're not concerned because they have access to the best treatments. They have access to the best health care. So naturally for them, they may not feel like they need the actual treatment. So that's one. Two, as I mentioned before briefly, just their health. Their health state is different for most people because they do have, different levels of access when we're talking about food, chefs, and those things. The other piece of it is if they haven't been putting medications in their bodies or, vaccines or being responsible to do any of these other things, but they've been otherwise healthy, for some of them, they're saying, okay, am I putting myself at risk? There are a minority of athletes that have been vocal that said that they have suffered from vaccine injuries. There was a tennis player that came out and reported it. So if that is the case, and even though it might be an inkling or a small percentage, sometimes people think in that mindset, even if it's 1 out of 100,000 or it's 1 out of 5,000, I don't want to be that one. And you can't blame people for having that skepticism when they know that this is their livelihood. So if I'm going to risk anything, do I want to put myself in that type of risk? Is it going to be, let's say, COVID, when I know that the facilities or the locations that I am is going to keep up all of these precautions, the infection prevention precautions to keep me safe, and I'll take my risk with that? Or do I want to inject something in my body and possibly, take the risk for that, even if it is minimal? And so I think this honestly comes down to them making the decision based off of their capability, but they'll be able to use their bodies. And again, we're talking about secondhand information because I don't have any personal conversations with athletes. But I think we have to take these factors into consideration when we're talking about access, as well as when we're talking about them and the risk that they're potentially taking when it comes to what could happen when it comes to their career as a result of a vaccine injury, even if the chances are minimal.
Because it's always something. Everyone knows Julie Andrews from The Sound of Music, the great actress and singer. You know she can't sing anymore, right? She had what befalls many singers, and I'm a singer, so I get it. She was having some vocal issues, and they found some little nodules, and so her doctor said, "Okay, what we're going to do is perform a surgical procedure to take it off of your vocal folds. Your vocal cords are held by vocal folds. They're very, 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 very fragile but strong uh, bands that are around your vocal folds, that are around your vocal cords. Well, guess what? A little nick, she can't sing anymore." And those are the things when you have to use your body to work, whether you're a singer, a speaker, or if you're an athlete, those are the things that you do think about. Uh, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, what are their rights? I have been watching this because the NBA Players Association, as they were negotiating for this season about, this, that, and the other, they said, well, first things first, take vaccine mandates off the table. They will not play for you if you require them to have if you require them to have vaccines. What are their rights? Because now we're seeing it play out differently as they go from city to city. They can play in some cities and not in others.
Well, good morning, Santita. Yeah, this is a legal quagmire, if you will, because on the one hand, I think if you're an athlete, it's really all about money. This is a $1 trillion industry, and these brave men and women who are in contact sports, if you're someone who's in an office, you can go in an office and close your door and minimize, wear a mask and all this. But if you're in a contact sport, you're going to, while you're performing the sport, you're not going to have a mask. And you're sweating and you're doing all the things that when I listen to Dr. Deborah Verholden and Dr. Knightley, you're enhancing your chances, perhaps, of contracting something because of the fluids, because of the contact if you don't have a mask. So there's a business decision here that trumps everything else, if you will. The business decision is the money. So when we talk about their legal rights, if they are 90% compliant, those are statistics, they're high because of a business decision, because any contraction of the virus will impact not just one person, but perhaps the entire team. That's a business decision. So when I think of their legal rights are as far as the contract being negotiated for them. So when you have high compliance, if you were to poll some people, and they will not reveal, and I would suggest that they not reveal it, they would probably say, I really felt like I had no choice.
Whoa.
It's the business that I'm in.
Wait. Why
It's
would
a
you
business
recommend
that
that
I'm
they
in.
not reveal it?
Because that's their own private decision. It's a business issue for them. It's a business issue for them. So if they were asked, did you really want to take the vaccination? That business decision could have ramifications if they say, actually, no, I didn't. They're not going to say that. Why would we want them to say that? They've taken the vaccination, and they may have been in a position where you have to pick and choose your battles. This COVID battle, if you're in a contact sport, breathing in people's faces, blah, 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 as how you make your living, support your family, and live becomes a business decision. Whereas for many of us, it's a personal decision that we make for ourselves and for our family. But if your job turns on one way or another taking a position, that's a business decision. So I would not recommend, if somebody really feels, if they're in a position where they took the vaccination because they felt they had no choice, I don't know that they need to speak out and say, because they're in a business, I took it because I had no choice, unless they understand potentially the consequences. They've got unions, they've got spokespersons, they've got people negotiating for them. So their legal rights are as far as those negotiating on their behalf.
Well, see, I want to
And
ask
for
you
those
this.
who are holdouts,
Because
that's I think.
well, hold on, because it seems, I'm just guessing. They pressed LeBron James for weeks, if not months. Have you been vaccinated? It's a personal decision. I don't want to talk about it. So people started speculating. So finally, he last week said, yes, I was vaccinated, and I was hesitant, which lets me know in that whole time he had not been vaccinated and didn't want to talk about it and didn't appreciate it. And I'm seeing a pushback from the NBA CK on this. And you're bringing up the specter of, well, duress. Did people feel that their arms were twisted? What does that mean if they do? And if you find out down the road that maybe they were negatively impacted, do they sue anybody?
Well,
I mean, how does that
well,
work?
I think their rights will be limited because they're making a business decision.
Okay.
So they're making a business decision to be a part of an organization that takes a position where more than likely there's some contractual terms. Maybe they waive their rights. They have representatives, and that's their legally binding aspects of that representation on behalf of the league. So I don't know. I'm not privy to those documents, but my sense is these are business decisions. Someone can feel pressure to divulge their status and make a decision and cave in because it's a business decision. And that's my point. It's not really, when you're in a league like that, necessarily about your personal choices. It is about the choice of the team. I'm not saying it's good or bad. That's how I see
Sure.
it. And by the way, it trickles down on the college level. They're not necessarily mandates, but they might have 99% compliance. And let's just say hypothetically, where I might have some information, if there are a couple of students who are holdouts, they're holdouts because they may feel that they don't want to be dictated to. They don't want someone telling them, you must do that. These are Black athletes. You must do that. They want it to be their choice. So when you tell them you must do that, you're always going to get some holdouts. If you bring people along and say, look, this is what's in the best interest of the team. If you don't, and if you contract it because they have to do regular testing, then you're going to have to be quarantined. But that's a reality of that business. When you've got kids that have scholarships, that's their business. Their business is every day to perform academically and to get up there on the field, whether it's playing basketball, football, soccer, baseball, and to perform that business because they are part of $1 trillion business. So from my standpoint, yes, they have legal rights, but their legal rights are absorbed into the business decision that they sign on to when they sign those contracts.
Well, it seems like business is trumping all of this. Karen Lene said, they are in a contact sport with no masks. How selfish, my opinion. You're the infection preventionist, Dr. Knighton. Help me. I mean, is what they're doing safe? I mean, we're seeing more and more breakthrough cases. In fact, in Israel, one of the most vaccinated countries on earth, and in Maine, one of the most vaccinated states, we're seeing a lot of hospitalizations of vaccinated people. Help us.
And I'll be honest, I don't like the term breakthrough cases.
Okay.
I just don't. In full transparency, I just don't, because it's possible for things to wear off, okay? It's possible for things to not be effective against certain strains. And so we're continuing to call it breakthrough, but are we at a situation where we can acknowledge that, okay, this vaccine was developed March of 2020, and yes, it is still effective against some strains, but maybe it's not working as things evolve. And I think that that's something that I continue to emphasize, which is why we should not be letting up on infection prevention practices. I will tell you that I have consulted with organizations, professional sports organizations, in regards to their infection prevention practices, whether it comes down to making sure they're sanitizing the ball, whether it comes down to making sure the players are sanitizing in between, cleaning their hands, making sure that their stadiums, their, practice facilities have adequate air exchange. All of these things go into one pot of tools that you can use to make sure that you are decreasing your risk of acquiring COVID. I'm sure that they're still doing temperature checks. So there are a lot of things that they are doing. And on top of that, even when it comes to testing, we're not sure about testing strategies from one facility to the next. We understand that, yes, maybe that CDC's recommendation is that the vaccinated don't get tested and the unvaccinated be tested. But maybe some organizations are still testing all just to make sure that everyone is safe. And so I bring that up to say that I think the thing is I cannot say that it's irresponsible of the NBA to do it, because we're not sure of the protocols that are outlined even before they make it onto that court, okay? But I can assure you of this. If they're having adequate air exchange, if they're practicing hand hygiene, if they're making sure that testing is done on a daily, likely for them it's probably a daily or a weekly basis, if they're making sure that, they're taking other prophylactic measures as well, which we may not know about, whether that has to do with their nose and their mouth, with sanitizing. We're not sure. So there are measures that they can be taken that maybe the public is not privy to that can be keeping them safe in a manner of which people only think the vaccine can protect individuals. And so I want us to keep that in mind. Also, too, when we are talking about the fact that the baseball teams over the summer had multiple breakthrough cases that had to interrupt the game. Things do happen, and I'm not sure that we have enough data to show us that breakthrough cases versus unvaccinated cases in one space, if one is more responsible than the other. But what I can tell you is that we do have relaxed measures when people feel that they are vaccinated and they don't have to use preventative measures. And so everyone should be practicing prevention, whether you're vaccinated or not, because no one wants to be that breakthrough case. No one wants to be the person that's going to have it wear off. And so in this case, I cannot say whether it's responsible or irresponsible. But I think the irresponsible thing of every single person to do, understanding that we're still finding data, is to crucify somebody if they take it or crucify somebody if they don't take it. It's let them have their own decision and not place our emotions on others because our decisions doesn't necessarily match what we would have done.
Well, my brother Jonathan put it so wisely, Dr. Deborah Verholen. He said, this is like a no-win situation now. He said, because we're not discussing facts now, we're discussing feelings, Dr. Deb. I've got 1 minute. It belongs to you. Where do we go from here? And of course, tonight we will, led by attorney C.K. Hoffler, be talking about R. Kelly on Let's Talk About It with Santita Jackson and Friends. So, of course, come to Santita Jackson and Friends, my Facebook page, because we want to continue the conversation that we started last week. Dr. Deb, 1 minute. It belongs to you.
Yeah, so I like what CK said about this being a business decision. I would offer that that's the case for everybody, right? For most people, that's the case. And this is why, and I've not wavered on this, and I've made it very clear. I'm not in favor politically of the mandate. My move is to mandate equity, not to mandate vaccines. We've had tremendous inequity even early on in who had access to the vaccine. So this notion that now people are having their hands forced, I know is only going to create further inequity. And it's interesting, right? Because we have less sympathy for these guys who are on multi-million-dollar, contracts, et cetera. But many of us have gotten up in arms around what it's done to the educational system and the school system. So most people are forced with the business decision because remember, we're in a society where your health insurance is attached to your employment. Mm-hmm. So if your employer mandates a COVID vaccine and you say no and you lose your job, you've lost your job and you've lost your health insurance. And a lot of people who've had the vaccine mandated on them are not high wage earners.
Absolutely.
They didn't say we're mandating it for executives. They're mandating it for all the regular Joes and the regular Janes, all the regular people. That's a real tough decision to make because most people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely. We're going to continue to have the discussion because this is going to play out all across the country, everybody. What are we going to do about Build Back Better? Child care tax credits. Medicare covering your hearing and your vision. What do you think about that? That's what's in the $3.5 trillion package that the Republicans want to cut down from $6 trillion to $3.5 trillion down to $1.5 trillion. Wow. Who gets cut? Let's talk about this money. Let's talk about these packages that need to be passed immediately. R. Kelly tonight at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can't wait to talk with you about that. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, back in just a few minutes. Lovely ladies. Are you all on mute?
Yeah, man.
Look, I was on mute.
No, go on mute.
No, it's
Santita, because we're sensitive to the sound. We don't want. I don't want any sound. Open up a drawer.
I know. You feel like you in trouble.
In trouble, right? I'm just like I don't want any sound.
Like we done all got caught a couple times. Yeah, we done got caught a couple times, and I'm like, dang, that was that loud. So it seemed like the speakers over there loud. You like, I hear noise in the background. As soon as we all hear that, we like, dang.
And then Santita, they have it. Deborah, they have it so they know who it is. TK, is that you over there? Because we hear so. Oh my God. So I just automatically go on mute because I just feel some kind of way. I'm going,
I'm with you. I'm exactly with you about
Trust me,
that one.
I hear it with you all. You all like, I can't look. And I'm like, I'm giving you these wonderful intros and then nothing. I'm like, it's just like, when your boyfriend tells you first time, I love you. If you don't hear him, honey, it's a thud heard around the world. It's like, oh my goodness. You don't respond. He's looking at you like, what? I just poured my oh
my gosh. Truthful or not, I just poured my heart out.
He could be lying. You know that. But it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. What?
This is a tough issue.
Absolutely.
It's a tough issue. I believe that athletes have the ability to move the pendulum on the because sports are considered religion in this country. So when you have masses of people that worship them when they're playing, they may not worship them necessarily all the time, but when they're playing, they have a voice because if a team decides they're not going to go to Atlanta or Minneapolis for a game because of some political issue or social justice issue, that has a very, very significant impact. And
well, they don't want to stand. They don't want to stand up for the vaccine, so they got a problem because now they're getting on the folks who, So I said, you all need to cut it out because now you are. This is where the liberty discussion gets real, and this is when you tap. Like I said, you're tapping into the vein of Black thought, and you really don't want to have that fight. I really don't think they want to have that one. I really don't. It's just you don't. This is not one you want to have.
Of it is too.
Attorney Connolly, Terry Basile, and Reverend Watkins are here.
Okay, you know what, ladies, we're gonna have. You know what? This is another discussion we'll have in the evening. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have to let you all go but I need to let you all go so I can grab these lines so we can get other calls through. Okay, ladies. I'm sorry.
All right.
So. No, CK, you're still here.
With the confirmations. I'm still on. Oh, okay. Well, I can let go. Okay, I thought you meant me too.
No, remember I told you. I sent that to you because this is legal. Okay. It's legal.
Okay.
It's legal.
I'm here.
Shanina and Dr. Fur Holden on. But oh, mm, okay. You know what? See if you can get Dr. Fur Holden back, Devin. I want to move. I want to, I'm asking Devin to do a whole lot right now. Bless him. Devin Andrake is my board operator. He is brilliant. I want to bring everybody down so we can get calls in. Is that okay, Devin?
Okay, I'll try getting back Dr. Holden back.
Yeah. And if you can just bring everybody else down, from the hot and warm lineup.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Oof, thank you. And Abraham, this is my Venezuelan boyfriend. I love you, Abraham. Mwah. Such a sweetheart. Oh, he's so sweet to me every morning. Daniel Garth, Dave Dowling, Linear Bob. He's my Silicon Valley boy friend. How about that? Love you. And all my girls over here. That's right. That's right. Tanya, girl, we haven't heard your voice in a long time. You're not impressed with Biden at all?
Dr. Verholden's back.
Okay. Dr. Deb?
Yep.
Want you in on because there's a health component to this. I know I didn't tell you.
Oh, okay. I thought I got the boot.
No, you didn't get the boot. I always try to release you to, girl, do you know how many jobs you've got? Oh.
Yeah.
Look, I was trying to bring you on yesterday, remember?
Yeah, I didn't even see that. I was in India heaven.
Don't worry. I know, honey. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But we're going to get right to here because this is well, now who do I have on with me now?
We have Attorney Connolly, Attorney Patillo, Reverend Watkins, and Dr. Verholden.
This is Erin.
Fantastic. Hey, hon, how are you? Pulling teeth with Frank Watkins. He does not like doing stuff like that.
Robert.
Robert Patillo, how you doing? Ooh, Frank.
Well, how are you?
It's wonderful hearing your voice today. Frank, I just want you all to know he has been Reverend's right hand for 50 years. And brilliant political theorist, strategist. But when you give him a mic, he is miserable. But I said,
seconds.
I've just got to bring him here because he has too much history and too much understanding of how this sausage is made. Sorry, Frank.
I've been on his left wing.
Well, yeah, now you are real far left. You even made the staff look at you like, what? What did he just say? Oh, well, we love you. We've been family for a long time, Frank. Wow. I can't even remember not knowing you. Wow. Even though you did work my nerves playing basketball just below my window in the mornings, I
10.
I thought you guys were the worst.
You didn't.
Ugh.
You didn't like that at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the
No,
morning?
did not. You were loud. Ooh.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Monday, October 4th, 2021. I'm coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's right. With my morning stars, you can go on and see Linear Bob from Silicon Valley and Dave Dowling from Canada and Joyce and Linda and, oh my gosh, and Lorraine and Mike and, Memphis and all my folks from all over. I'm so glad. Tanya, we haven't heard you in a long time. D. Ray, Jewel, everybody, call in. Let's talk about the $1 trillion infrastructure package, roads, bridges, and the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package, personal infrastructure, childcare, on and on and on. Do you even know what's in it? Do you know that Bernie Sanders first presented a $6 trillion idea? It got trimmed down to $3.5 trillion. Now, the moderates or the conservatives, the corporatists in the Democratic Party want to chop it down to $1.5 trillion. Who gets cut? What gets cut? I want you all to call me, text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT or 9278. Want to know what your thoughts are. Want to know what your thoughts are. GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text. I want to hear your voices. We need to hear your voices. And guess what? They need to hear your voices in Washington, too. So call 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121 and let them know in the House and the Senate that you want this $3.5 trillion passed. Who gets cut? Who gets cut? Can't wait to bring on this panel and talk about it in just a couple of seconds. But let's get a few of these headlines out the way. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 69 degrees, showers. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 73 degrees, partly cloudy. And the Twins were triumphant in the playoffs, everybody, over the Royals, 7-3. The Tigers, well, they fell to the White Sox. The White Sox 5, the Tigers 2. And the Cubs were triumphant over the Cardinals, 3-2. And wow, we had a clean sweep of it, everybody, in the NFL. The Bears 24, the Lions 14, and the Vikings. Well, they fell to the Browns. The Browns 14, the Vikings 7, everybody. Liberal and moderate Democrats are still at odds over this crucial high dollar Build Back Better agenda. We're going to be talking about that in a hot second, everybody. 2 bills at play here. What is going to get passed? What is going to get trimmed? What is going to get cut? That's on you, everybody. The Supreme Court today begins a new term that could impact how we live for generations, everybody. Gun rights, abortion, the death penalty, religious freedom. We're going to see where it all goes. They open up today. That's right, in Washington, D.C. A new oral medicine that fights viral infection could give doctors a big leg up in the fight against COVID-19. But experts agree that the best way to curb deaths and end the pandemic is still vaccines. But the drug makers, Merck and Ridgeback Biotherapeutics, say that their pill can reduce the risk of COVID-19 hospitalization and death by 50%. Women's rights advocates rallied for abortion justice in Washington, D.C., and indeed all over the country this past weekend. Were you there? The Pandora Papers, the biggest ever leak of offshore data, exposes the secrets of the rich and the powerful, many of them kings and elected officials. So we will see where all of this goes. Everybody, let's talk about this Build Back Better. Build Back Better and the infrastructure bill. Many of us don't realize that there are 2 bills at play here. The $1 trillion bill is for infrastructure, bridges, roads. Indeed, the American Society of Civil Engineers has given us somewhere between a D and a C. That's right. If you had to grade America's infrastructure, they said we have got a lot of work to do, and it's going to cost more than $20 trillion to get America up to 21st century standards. We're not even looking at that. It's just $1 trillion. Okay, most people agree with that. But now the Build Back Better campaign. Well, now that's the holdup. Bernie Sanders says, hold on. He says, progressives, there are 96 of you. You've become a voting bloc that Nancy Pelosi needs. Don't let them roll you over. He says, stand firm in this Democratic battle over the Build Back Better agenda. So you've got the centrists, the corporatists who are blocking all of this. What's in this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill? 2 years of free community college. Not free community college, it's an investment in Americans' future. Childcare and universal pre-K, Medicare expansion, and on and on and on. Got a tremendous panel who's going to help us to make sense of all of this because we need to know what's in this. We need to see $3.5 trillion. And wow, Frank Watkins, yesterday you said, wow, we actually generate much, 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 much more than that. This is barely 1% of the monies that will be generated by the American government over the next 10 years. And this is $3.5 trillion that will play out over 10 years, not in 1 year, everybody. $350 billion a year for 10 years. What about that? Do you need help with childcare? Do you need 2 years of free community college? Do you need? What are your needs, everybody? We've got a tremendous panel. We've got attorney C.K. Hoffler, who stayed with us to help us dig down in the legalities of this. Attorney Erin Connolly. In fact, she has done a lot of organizing all over the country, and it'll be interesting to get her thoughts and views on Senator Kirsten Sinema, with whom she has worked. Can't wait to hear what she's got to say about that. Attorney Robert Patillo, who, of course, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, hosts his own radio show, as does C.K. Hoffler. They're both on WAOK. C.K. every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. He is on every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. We've got Reverend Frank Watkins, the co-author of A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights. He wrote that, of course, with Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., and he has been Reverend Jesse Jackson's communications director and chief political strategist for more than 50 years. Dr. Deborah Furholden had to pull her back because there are health implications. And so let me start with you, Robert Patillo. What do you make of this fight?
Well, it's the strangest thing the Democrats do because it's a civil war. It's an intra-party fight. But they just simply whip their entire caucus into shape the way the Republicans are able to do. They could slide this through very easily. They don't. It's not that they're fighting with the Republicans on this. They're fighting with other Democrats on it. And Joe Manchin, okay, it's understandable. He comes from a fossil fuel state. He comes from a coal mining state. So you have a bill that's investing billions of dollars in green energy and in the environment, electric charging stations, solar panels, wind, solar, those sorts of things. That's at least you can understand. He's a lobbyist for the fossil fuel industry. He's corrupt. He lives on a yacht down at the wharf in Washington, D.C. So you can understand his opposition to this. Cinema is an entirely different story, though, because she came from the Green Party. She's an environmental activist. She ran as a progressive. She's quirky. She's the first bisexual ever or openly bisexual person elected to United States Senate. She checks all the boxes for being a progressive who should be on board with this agenda. And so it's almost innocuous to try to figure out what exactly it is that she opposes. And the fact that she literally runs when reporters ask her, what do you want? What is it that you want to negotiate? What are the changes that need to be made in order for you to support this legislation? There was a video of her recently where an office or a reporter asked her, well, where are you at on this bill? She says, I'm in the Senate. And then they asked her again. She said, I'm in front of the elevator before getting on the elevator and leaving. So I think what we saw last week was President Biden on Capitol Hill meeting with progressives. Progressives aren't the people who need to move. He's going to have to meet with those senators. He ran on this platform of I can bring people together. Well, if you can't get you can't get cinema, there have to be two moderate Republicans that you can get to replace them. If you claim to be this bipartisan genius who can, massage the MAGAs and the Tea Party into voting for real progress. But in reality, President Biden's entire administration could be over before Thanksgiving. Because if you cannot get anything done before Thanksgiving, guess what happens when you get back from the Thanksgiving break? You go directly into the budget crisis, which we've kicked the can down the road because they only push government funding until December 3rd. So after Thanksgiving, you're going to have a budget fight on your hands. And after that, you're going to have the Christmas holidays and the New Year's. And then when Congress finally meanders back in, everyone's in re-election mode for the 2022 midterms. Normally, the party in power loses a massive number of seats during those midterms. And if that holds true, then the Biden agenda will be on hold until 2024 effectively. So you really have between now and Thanksgiving to get all these things done. And I think you're going to need a more involved and aggressive executive branch to kind of use that bully pulpit to push these things through. I think Biden should be holding rallies in West Virginia and Arizona every other day in order to get local support around these things. I think they have to do the full court press to ensure that the public understands that they see the number. They see $3.5 trillion and say, wow, that's a lot of money. But what we need to be concentrating on are the programs and how those help the American people and how popular those programs are, and to stop the obstructionist in his own party from being able to stop this agenda.
Frank Watkins, you made the point. You and Reverend Jackson made the point yesterday, because you all have been doing this messaging for 50 plus years. He said, looking at $3.5 trillion is a mistake. That's a big mistake. You need to look at what's in this bill, what's in this personal infrastructure bill. 2 free years of community college for all students, regardless of family income, child care and universal pre-K, Medicare expansion, which would include dental, hearing, and vision service, extended child tax credit, cutting prescription drug prices, which can, which can put you under. I mean, many people are not using the prescriptions that they need, or they are rationing them, imperiling their health. Paid family medical leave. We don't have that in the United States. Looking at climate change. What are the Democrats doing with the messaging that you think is lacking?
Well, in 3 words, messing it up.
Okay.
Reverend Jackson made the point yesterday that the real focus shouldn't be the money, but the substance that's in the bill. And as you've indicated, Medicare expansion, that is covering for glasses, dental, senior hearing aids for seniors, to be able to negotiate with pharma for lower prescription drug prices. We pay 2 and 3 times for our prescription drugs what everyone else in the world pays the same company for the same drugs. It contains paid family and medical leave. Every other industrial country, I believe, in the world provides paid family and medical leave except the United States, and this bill contains 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave. Universal pre-K for 3 and 4 year olds. That would be a tremendous aid to the education of our children. We know that educating children very early contributes to their development later. Free 2 years of community college. Obviously, when we say free, it's not really free. The taxpayers are going to pay for that, just like the GI Bill and just like public education generally, kindergarten through the 12th grade today. Extended child tax credit. Any individual family, with a one-parent family that makes less than $75,000, they will get $300 per month for each of their children from birth until they turn 6 years old. When they turn 6 years old, they will then be reduced to $250 a month per child until they reach the age of 18. Just in the last 3 months, 2 or 3 months, since July 15th, when this went into effect, child poverty in this country has been reduced by about 47%. And they want to make that permanent because the child credit that passed in the relief bill only lasted, I believe it's through December of this year, and they want to make that permanent. If you have small children that you have to put in daycare so you can go to work, this law contains an element that you will not pay more than 7% of your income for child care. Then, of course, the very survival of the planet and the people on the planet is at stake, because for the first time there is a serious start in providing money to engage climate change. So there's a lot of real substance in this bill. And what I found frustrating from the press, when they wanted to focus on just the money, and then you had Manchin and Sinema saying, well, we don't support that amount of money. Well, which of those programs are you suggesting we cut? You don't want to raise children out of poverty. You don't want to allow pre-K. You don't want to allow, people to be educated in a community college. But you don't want to save the planet and the people on it. What is it in the plan, in the bill, is it that you want to cut? And of course, that's the human. There are two dimensions to the infrastructure plan. One is they refer to as the human infrastructure that they're having to do under an arcane law in the Senate rule in the Senate called reconciliation. And then there's the other bill that's a $1.2 trillion what they call hard infrastructure, roads, bridges, seaports, airports, broadband in rural communities and other urban areas. So that should be the focus. But as I mentioned yesterday, while I completely agree with Reverend Jackson, what he was arguing yesterday about focusing on the marketing of what's in the bill, and not the money, even that has to be put in context. I had a New Testament professor in seminary that talked about a text out of context is a pretext. And so even the $3.5 trillion has to be put in some context. And the context is this is a bill that would be implemented over 10 years. And over the next 10 years, the U.S. will generate a gross domestic product of about $300 trillion. So when you talk about $3.5 trillion being added to the economy, you're saying that this will add slightly over 1% to the economy. Hardly something that's going to drive inflation through the roof. And then what about the argument that we don't have the money? Well, if we were attacked today, do you think Manchin and Sinema could find $3.5 trillion over the next 10 years to defend the nation? Of course they could. Do you think if the military said we need some new hardware to protect the nation, of course they would find it. We just spent $2 to $3 trillion over 20 years in a losing war in Afghanistan. They just can't find the money when it comes to the human needs of Americans. I remember Reverend Jackson interviewing Bernie Sanders when he was a presidential candidate in 2016 at the Rainbow Push headquarters. And he asked Senator Sanders how much the Federal Reserve invested in bringing the economy back after the Great Recession, after Lehman Brothers collapsed on September 15th, 2008, and put the entire world economy on the edge of going over the cliff. And he said he sent a letter to the Federal Reserve and asked him, and they sent a letter back and told him $17 trillion. We can find the money when we want to do what we want to do.
Attorney Connolly. I have a couple minutes before we go to break. What happened with Kirsten Sinema? I mean, what happened here?
Well, let's unpack her personal narrative a little bit. So there's a little more context, right? So Senator Sinema was a member of the Green Party. She was a progressive. She was fighting for LGBTQ rights. She was pushing a progressive agenda in the Arizona House when it was a very, very red state. I would say the peak portion of it when they were trying to pass horrible immigration laws. She was a part of that fight as well. But her personal narrative is one of poverty. She grew up very poor. There was a notorious ad where she talked about having to live in a abandoned gas station with her siblings and her parents. So she understands poverty. It's something she lived. And instead of speaking her truth, instead of empathizing with those who have lived that experience, I believe her trauma prevents her from doing that in a way where she likes to pretend like it didn't happen, that she thinks that everybody should be able to achieve what she achieved, and that they should not receive that help, right? We see the two sides of that coin in many instances, right? And I think the psychology behind it is she thinks that other people should bootstrap themselves out of poverty as she had to do, right? The reality is not everybody has boots. Okay. And finally, the American people have an opportunity to get the help that they deserve. We are not on par with other wealthy nations in this country, whether it's prescription drugs, whether it's child care assistance. We see article after article in this pandemic, and it's been exhausting for me to look at this, and that there's a war on women, right? Mm-hmm. Who is leaving the workforce? Women. Who is forced to stay home with children during this pandemic? The women. Who is in higher rates of poverty due to this pandemic? Women. These policies lift women and therefore children and families out of poverty. We have the data. This is not a fantasy that we're creating. This is real. There are real numbers behind this showing that families are lifted out of poverty. So yes, the child tax credit should be extended and made permanent. They're trying to extend it till 2025 right now. That is life changing.
Well, hold on.
One thing that I read
hold that thought. Hold that till we get on the other side. Because hearing her personal narrative, I only have 10 seconds here, Attorney Connolly. Hearing her personal narrative, I mean, living in an abandoned gas station, and then she is espousing these policies. Something's off here. Something's off. 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Did you know all that's in the Build Back Better bill? And if they're going to cut from $3.5 trillion down to $1.5, what's going to get cut? Call me. I want to hear your thoughts. Tonight, R. Kelly on Let's Talk About It with Santita Jackson and Friends at 6 o'clock. Back in just a minute. Oh, I'm going to let you come on back. Don't worry. And I mean, no, because it's just, these are pieces about Kirsten Sinema that you don't know, that I certainly did not know. I mean, I knew she grew up poor, but I'd know that she grew up in grinding poverty, which ought to impact you, Yes. And Dr. Verholden, how are you going to deny grandma her choppers? Come on. Teeth. I mean, particularly dental coverage, because so much of your health, your dentist can look in your mouth and see the state of your health. Dental, vision, and hearing. I mean, how do you go to the doctor and not get checked for those things? It's crazy. That's just nuts. So anyway, I'm so glad that we about to sound like Carol Burnett. So glad that we've had this time together, just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before we know it, comes a time we've got to say, so long. I love that one. Well, let me see. Oh, bless your heart. Abraham, you just want to give my father another job. Bless your heart, making him an ambassador. Oh, no. Oh, my mother would say, absolutely not. Oh, but she knows he's not going to retire. Hey, lovely people, you all want to talk while we're on Facebook Live, while I'm looking through these comments? And Abraham, that was not a reckless proposal. We're really flattered. That's very, very sweet. I'm just having a little fun with you.
One of the interesting questions I have is they talk about this as a $3.5 trillion bill, and under the rule that was passed, by Speaker Pelosi, they have what they call pay-go. That is, every bill that you pass now has to be paid for.
Pay as you go.
So the $3.5 trillion bill is paid for. But Manchin says he only wants to spend $1.5 trillion. I want to know what they're going to do with the other $2 trillion.
I don't know. Maybe we should ask the Koch brothers.
I'm sure he would recommend subsidies for coal companies, because that seems to be all he cares about.
Ooh. Boy.
Well, West Virginia used to have 77,000 jobs in the coal industry. It now has 13,000, and it's shrinking. They're not coming back because of automation and mountaintop mining.
Wow.
So I don't know what he's talking about. He made his money in oil. He's a millionaire. That's why you saw him out on his yacht down at the wharf a couple of days ago. So you're right.
60 seconds.
He's a fossil fuel guy.
Okay, well, I'm coming to you, Aaron. and then I'm going to Dr. Verholden and C.K. Hoffler, and then I'm going to go to these callers.
Sounds good.
They want to. Everybody wants to talk about this. Stand by.
This is 10 seconds.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 radio. We're talking about Build Back Better, $3.5 trillion personal infrastructure, and the $1 trillion infrastructure plan. Progressives said, we cut a deal. We're supposed to be voting on these plans together. Corporatist Democrats have said, well, we're going to separate them. Now we're going to come on in. But now the progressives have a 96-person caucus. They are a huge bloc and they're not moving. So we've been getting the tea, if you will, on Senator Kyrsten Sinema. We've got Attorney Robert Patillo, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Reverend Frank Watkins giving us such an education here. And we've got Dr. Deborah Verholden and, of course, Attorney Erin Connolly, who has spent, she's someone who actually has worked with Kyrsten Sinema. Wow, Senator Sinema, bless her heart. Wow. Her narrative is so powerful, and yet she is voting. She has gone. She is so far away from the Green Party. What has happened here, Erin?
Well, I don't think Kyrsten Sinema is living in the same reality that her constituents in Arizona are anymore, right? And we see this happen with politicians that get ingrained in the institution and create this bubble experience for themselves, where she only cares about her Ironman races and making sure, she's featured on SNL and is getting the proper amount of attention. And that's the general consensus among folks that have worked with her for a really long time on the ground in Arizona, that knocked on doors for her, that supported her against Martha McSally, who was a horrible alternative, right? So people are caught in this quagmire of knowing that they did the right thing, but they're also so disappointed. Kyrsten Sinema has not had a town hall in 3 years as a Democrat. That's just not the values that she was elected to act on, right? She's not even talking to her constituents. So the statements that she's coming out with, saying that she, negotiated in good faith and is somehow the victim by not having her Kyrsten Sinema branded infrastructure bill because she cares about what her name is attached to, and this is not hers. So there is a huge pushback in her home state. She will likely be primaried when she's up for re-election, but that's in 2024. So she thinks she can ride this out. But people are now getting desperately frustrated with her, following her. As we saw, somebody followed her into the restroom where she was teaching a class at Arizona State. But this is a young woman whose family is potentially being deported under these immigration laws and is upset with the Democratic senator, right? That's not a part of this bill. But what I think Democrats need to do is, and it's a fine line for them because many Democrats take corporate money, like Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema, right? So their messaging should align them with the Republican interests and start communicating directly to the American people. We have the technology to do digital ads that show that if this plan is passed, Joe Biden and the Democrats want to give you X amount of money. Is that $1,000 a month because of the savings in childcare? Is that $5,000 a month with the savings you'll save on, let's say, people like me who take insulin, that are insulin dependent with type 1 diabetes? We have the highest cost of insulin in the world on a prescription that was supposed to be free. The inventor wanted it to be free. So tell the American people what these folks are going to take out of their pocket, out of their bank account. And that's the reality of what's happening. People are seeing the child tax credits come in. You're going to take that away from folks right before a midterm election, and that's going to be your legacy? That cannot happen for Democrats. You need to communicate to the American people and let them know to call these folks that are obstructing their income.
Sure.
They earned this, okay? And instead of giving these breaks to millionaires and billionaires yet again, our values now say, we want to support you. We want to support that working mom who is doing her best and still has a child care bill of $2,000 sometimes in a major American city. That's more than a mortgage payment for many folks, right? We have to break it down. We have to make it accessible and easy and short, and it needs to be done quickly. So that I would love to see the Democrats come out with a bank account of what people are going to get. That is motivating for people, especially during a pandemic when we see businesses closing, we see folks unable to work in the same way. This will change lives, but they have to know what's in the bill.
Absolutely. They have to know that. They have to communicate it. Dr. Deborah Holden, I mean, there's a lot with respect to healthcare in this bill. I mean, I think it's a big deal for Medicare to begin to cover dental, vision, and hearing. Big Pharma would have to be negotiated with, our government would negotiate with them to bring the prescription drug prices down. How would it impact how would it impact someone who's on Medicare to have their dental, vision, and hearing covered, to have to pay lower prescription drug prices? Is this, because you're always talking about equity, is that like at the heart of that?
Yeah, these are important issues because, people have to make tough choices. Do I get that prescription or do I get some food? Or do I get a little less food than I really need or lower quality food than I'd like to have and make my medication last twice as long as it's supposed to, which of course just undermines the therapeutic value of the medication. So, anything that gets us on a sort of keel where people have their basic needs taken care of and that is happening fairly and equitably. That's what we espouse as our values. There's just nothing about how our country runs that actually is consistent with that. And so to me, we talk about health in all policy. I see health in every single aspect of this. This child tax credit, if they said you can only get one thing, that is the thing that I would be fighting for. And mind you, don't get me wrong, I don't want one thing. But to be able to lift, some substantial proportion of America's children out of poverty, that's also a type of investment that's going to have a long-term implication. If you look at, people's likelihood of living in poverty as an adult as a function of whether or not they ever lived in poverty as a child, if you're African American, it's like the same thing. If you ever lived in poverty as a child, you have an almost equal likelihood, even for just 1 year, of living in poverty as an adult. So then there's what we call the black tax, the double whammy of being poor and also being minority. And I think it also hits rural communities very much the same way. So there's just so much here and so much potential and so much possibility. This notion that they're going to start cutting, I'm just curious what gets left on the cutting floor. Then what we don't want to lift kids out of poverty. We don't want people to have adequate health care. We don't want to deal with infrastructure. It's just like this is what's needed. And these investments are going to have long-term implications. So I see health all over this.
Absolutely. And you know what, CK? I saw something that was interesting. They have a lot of lesser-known provisions in here. There's even a $5 million a year program for the SBA, the Small Business Administration, for an entrepreneurial program for formerly incarcerated individuals. I mean, got a lot of stuff in there, CK, but that jumped out at me, to give people who've been in prison, who coming out a chance to develop skills they might have had before they went to prison, or skills that they acquired in prison, a chance to really to move forward. And I mean, there's so much good stuff in it. I mean, it's like, who do you cut? Who do you cut? I mean, CK, I mean, your thoughts about this?
Well, I think absolutely. I think, unfortunately, what's going to get cut is are going to be the provisions that would help the elderly and women and children. That's just really, unfortunately, how it always happens. And it would be very tragic. I feel that women and children, the least of these, and the elderly are caught in the middle of political infighting, and it really shouldn't be that way. And the reason why I think that's so unfortunate is for obvious reasons, but also we're in COVID. And so during a COVID era, they're already compromised. Right now, the population that is most affected are the children because they're unable to get vaccinated. So I think that while there's a lot being proposed, a lot still has to yet to be negotiated. But I do think on the short end of the stick will be women, children, and the elderly.
Wow, everybody, that's why you need to call 202-224-3121. Let them know you want nothing cut. How about that? Let me go to Chapearl. Oh boy, Chapearl, what do you have to say?
Good morning, Santita. Thank you so much for taking my call today. I've been listening to everyone, and what I'm hearing is that the Democrats really just don't want to do this, because I'm looking at the fact that we have a Democratic president, we have the House, and we're split on the Senate, and we don't even know what's in this bill. Why is that? If you can text me about getting the vaccine, if you have the best marketing campaign for the vaccine 24/7, you hear something about saying, get the vaccine, you need to get the vaccine. You can say that for the $3.5 trillion. You need to pressure these senators to vote for what we need. So to me, this is a will issue. Will they do what is needed in order to get this bill passed? And I just feel that the people at the top, starting with President Biden, doesn't believe in the full bill himself, which is why he's not out there on the limb for this bill. He is sitting up here waiting back in the cut, hoping that the progressives will cave. And I'm praying that the progressives continue to hold the line with their foot on his neck. They could actually do massive tax drops. The president has the ability to be able to send out alerts anytime he wants. And he could say, call your senator today and have them vote for this bill. If Democrats have everything within their power, they just don't want to do it. And we have to begin to realize that they don't want this bill. They don't want to help American people. And I'm not sitting up here trying to believe that it's just two senators. No, it's starting with the president of the United States. He don't want it either, because he would do more if he did.
Stay right there, Chapearl. I mean, Frank, Robert, what say you? First you, Frank.
Well, I don't want to be negative, but the one thing I hear about Chapearl every time she's on the radio, I just hear nothing but negativity, and it suppresses people's vote.
Well, do you hear negativity, or do you hear disappointment?
I understand the frustration.
Yeah.
But the only reason there is the proposal that we have is because people voted. We voted in record numbers, 81 million for Biden, 74 for Donald Trump. Do not. It's easy to say at one level, but hard to implement. We just have to be determined to go through whatever wall they put up, and there is nothing positive that comes from a suppress the vote strategy.
See, I don't think that's what she's doing, though, Frank. To be honest with you, I really don't. I think that we have to.
That may not be her intention, but that's the way it comes across.
It doesn't, people.
Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's doing anything but her.
No. I mean, I think this is.
Anything. The Democrats aren't doing anything.
No, this is what you hear in the streets, Frank. Frank. This is what you're hearing. People feel that way.
Clear.
People feel that way.
I know. That's why I'm saying she's encouraging that street suppression.
No, I think she's
and
speaking to it.
I think that's a good.
Okay. I mean, you respectfully, you and I just disagree.
Frank, to be honest, I am not suppressing the vote. The Democrats are suppressing the vote. When they sit up here and they made us come out, y'all told us to hold our nose and vote for Biden. This is what y'all told us. And y'all said that if we hold our nose and vote for Biden, we will get X, Y, Z. Now X, Y, Z is on the table, and nobody is pushing for this $3.5 trillion deal, which is what we were promised. I want the Democrats to go out there and fight just as hard as we did for them to get elected. I want them to go out there and fight to pass this bill. And I see Biden and I see Harris silent on not pressing this bill through. They have power.
Well, I
am not sitting up here
hold
saying
that.
it's only going to be
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Let me get.
I agree
Okay.
with that the Democrats and Biden have not done what they should have done. I've been frustrated about that as well.
And we have stayed
about it.
frustrated. I know I have for a lifetime. Hold on. Let me get Howard from Los Angeles. Howard?
That's what I was going to think. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Yes, how are you?
Hello? Okay. Hey, I want to piggyback on what the sister said. I feel the same way she does. I wish the Democrats grow some balls. That's all there's to it. You got people like I live in Los Angeles, California, all this. We got a very serious homeless population out here. Like other cities like Chicago and stuff, we get cold back there, so people have to come outside. Here, if it don't rain on you, can live outside, basically. And we got homeless encampments all over the place. You go in Beverly Hills, you see somebody in a little spot. And I wish the Democrats grow some balls. The people around there suffering, they ain't got nothing to lose. They're sleeping in tents, pushing shopping carts everywhere. And the two senators hanging it up. One of them, well, you got two senators, well, three really. Mitch McConnell, Manchin, and Sinema. Mitch McConnell and Manchin come from the poorest states in the country.
Unbelievable.
How can he go home and look at the people in the eye and tell them what he's doing to them? In California, we're supporting the base of the nation. We put in $1, we never get back 30 cents. How are we supposed to feel? The Democrats need to get some balls. People around there starving. They ain't got nothing to lose. That's why the crime rate is high. Got this virus thing going. A whole lot of things going on. It's affecting coming down on us, the working man. And nobody cares about us until what we got to do as working people is go back to the 60s. We got to hit the streets. But I'll tell you what the real problem is. And I know I'm going to touch this and told you. Drugs. We've been drugged to death. That's why people are not out here. They keep the weed and the heroin and the cocaine and liquor coming through. People are drugged down, and I really feel that way. I'm right here.
That people are being numbed out, so they won't.
Yeah,
well, I tell you what. Well, hold on, Howard.
Nothing.
Howard, stay right there from Los Angeles. Stay right there, because I'm gonna tell you what. The Supreme Court is going to push people into the street by the time they roll back all these rights that we're looking at. I mean, this is going to be one of the most consequential sessions in generations. Abortion, affirmative action, and voting rights, and on and on and on and on. I just want to get a couple more callers in before we go to, we're going to stay on for a little bit on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. But let me go to you, Robert from Wisconsin. Robert, it's always wonderful hearing your voice.
Hi, it's wonderful to hear you guys as well. Really, we need to stop fooling ourselves that we have the Senate. We don't have the Senate. Sinema and Manchin they have their own interests. I mean, he receives $500,000 himself from a coal plant he's involved with. And, he came out publicly and said he would support a $4 trillion spending package when it was fixed. And now all of a sudden we're hearing about, $1.5 trillion. It's just not believable. Sinema, if you look at her record, literally every position she's ever taken, she's furiously trying to get rid of her tweets. So she's done a 180 on almost everything. So, I mean, 25% of the voters in Arizona could recall her. 89% of the Move On members that were surveyed, out of the 300,000 of them, said they regret, putting her into office. She's also in the middle of a no confidence vote in her state. So, I mean, I think we need to be clear the media narrative from CNN and MSNBC about, they're conservative and concerned about budgets. I mean, that's just pure fantasy land. The reality is that they're corrupt. Just like when Lieberman was in office, we were all making excuses for his actions and his behavior. So, I mean, you look at this bill, there's some wonderful stuff in here. They should be promoting it instead of just talking about the dollars. And then look at the other side. The infrastructure bill is filled with pork. It's a corporate giveaway. That's why we have 19 or 20 Republicans on board. And, if you guys remember for a while there, they were talking about American exceptionalism. Well, look at the United States. We're in the middle or the bottom of the pack, in healthcare and education and pre-K and climate and infant mortality. So I think, people need to start questioning that as well. As if you think we're so exceptional in all these things we should be doing, where's the support? Why is there not one Republican on the other side of the aisle? And I think the other thing that's critical is, I think Frank mentioned it earlier, we have some Senate races coming up here. We have Ron Johnson in Wisconsin. There's an open seat in Ohio that Morgan Harper's running for. We need to get out there and get active so that, the cinemas and the mansions are controlling everything. And, we need Biden, we need Schumer to apply pressure. Close a military base, close some federal buildings, take them off of committees, take funding away from their state, force these people to do the right thing.
Robert Patillo.
Now you're talking.
Okay, well, see, that's
now
okay. Now, Frank, okay, talk to us, Frank.
I mean, that's the alternative. Is to talk about what people should be doing to put pressure on the Democrats, not just complaining that they're not doing anything.
No, but they aren't doing that, Frank. So that means they're not doing anything. I mean, they're not doing that.
Well, then, but what's my assignment to get them to do something?
What is the assignment?
That's the question.
Well,
make calls, join protests, register voters. Lift people's spirit when they're down, and try to convert people from, there's no hope to, there is some hope if we just keep acting and pushing and so forth. That's what the alternative is. If you understood what I was saying earlier, I was criticizing the Democrats big time, but I was also saying, trying to teach people what was in the bill so as to inspire them to get involved.
I agree. I think that
Democrats.
I think though
aren't doing anything.
I think that when you are living with this kind of frustration, okay, every day, we have to have a space where we can say, "I don't like this." I am tired of smiling when I'm sad, laughing when things are not funny, and patting people on the back when they're not doing what I need them to do. And I think that at some point we got to be. And I'm not saying that you're saying that, Frank. No, but I'm just saying at some point, Chaparral and Renee and whoever else is going. Because Renee, I've got like 1 minute while we're to give to you. Renee, you're from Chicago. You said you voted against Trump and not for Biden.
Do I think what? Sirens are all around me because the police are blocking my street for my school. So there's a shooting or something that happened.
Oh my!
Okay. Yeah. But Santita,
I've got 1 minute.
Biden, but I just want to say that, like many, I voted against Trump more than voting for Biden because actually Biden has continued some of the harsh policies that Trump had, and it's just like I thought would happen. So while we don't want people not to vote. We want people to be active and vote in the primaries and get people in there who will really be representative of the needs of the people. And I agree with Chaparral. Some of these Democrats are hiding behind the two that they know are saying no so they can have cover. But how many of them are getting money, dividends from investments or getting the dark money to help fund their campaigns? That's why people don't trust them.
Stay right there. We're gonna be on the air for another minute, but I want you all to stay on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Stay right there. Chaparral, are you still there?
Yes, she is.
Oh, okay. Everybody stay right there. because we're going to talk about this just a little bit more on the other side on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Of course, things get hot, hot, hot just before we're about to get off the air tonight at 6 p.m. Please meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page so that we can talk about R. Kelly. I want to continue that conversation too, because it was kind of like this, and we're going to continue to have these conversations because everybody matters. We just love you, Frank Watkins, for your historical understanding, the context that you always give us. And, I appreciate you really trying to keep us hopeful. Attorney Aaron Connolly, I hear you and feel you. Attorney Robert Patillo, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, who had to leave. It's Dr. Deborah Holden. You hope you can stay with us for a hot second longer. But let's talk about this, everybody, because we have a whole lot of wonderful people who have called in who have some very strong feelings about these bills. We need all the help we can, and we need more. Bernie Sanders originally proposed $6 trillion. It was cut to $3.5 trillion. Now Joe Manchin wants to cut it down to $1.5 trillion. What's going to get cut? What? Dental, vision, and hearing care and Medicare? 2 years of free community college? What? Do you know that it is $100,000 a year to go to Columbia University and University of Chicago? Undergrad. Are you serious? Come on now. We cannot continue to stoke and build up the rich and rip away at the poor and the middle class. You know what? It's our money anyway. Call 202-224-3121 and tell whatever representative you get to, that you want them to vote on these bills and you want them now. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. All right, ladies. Robert Patillo, who do I still have? Devin.
We got Aaron Connolly, Reverend Watkins, and Chappelle.
Okay. Great. Did I just lose Robert?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Robert, why don't you respond to what you've heard?
Well, I think there's valid points on both and all sides. I for the life of me don't understand why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris haven't been on, the Colbert Show, on Jimmy Fallon, on Jimmy Kimmel, on Good Morning America, the Today Show, just blitzing the airwaves so the American people understand that what they are actually trying to vote on. Because I think the vast majority of Americans, when they hear infrastructure bill, that doesn't put the antennas up. But when you start talking about free 2 years of college, free early childhood education, free child care, those sorts of things, well, then they forget about that numeric number. So I think that's just definitely been a mistake. We need to have indeed been afraid to run on this bill, but they almost want to pass it in the shadows in case something good happens, but also be able to have plausible deniability if something bad happens coming out of it. So they really want this passed. They're going to have to do the public work behind it. And if I rallies in West Virginia every weekend.
Absolutely.
Hell, I might have just moved the White House out to West Virginia to pressure Manchin into it. You have to do that LBJ strategy. You have to do that strategy and get his agenda passed. So I think this White House has tried to outsource the hard work, thinking they had the majority, and now they're realizing that they have until between now and Thanksgiving to get their entire agenda done. If they don't get it done, then this will be a one-term presidency. This will be a return of the MAGA movement, and Trump will be ridden back into power and saying, "Did you miss me?" This time with a mandate from the people.
Wow. Chappelle, Renee, anyone who's still there?
This is Aaron.
Aaron? Well, Aaron first. I'm sorry, Chappelle. Aaron?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think Robert brings up a really good point that I wanted to bring up in the last portion of the segment, that if you don't pass these things, there is a real frustration among the American people, not the Beltway bubble, the real American people that need something done. They need help. They are not going to show up to vote and wait in long lines if they don't get what they were promised at some point. There is a real danger of having a populist movement that is more susceptible to Trump-like rhetoric. And that is what we saw on January 6th, right? that can be amplified. That is dangerous territory. So if the Democrats are in real danger of not only losing, but creating a situation where people don't trust anything in government anymore. And the Republicans have done a great job on their messaging and holding the line, sticking to their talking points, and not deviating from their messaging. We need the same type of process. If the president, it starts with the president, the vice president. Every congressperson should be holding town halls in these states. Go to Arizona and let's have a town hall and tell people what they are going to get and who is keeping it from them. Same thing in West Virginia, same thing in these swing districts, right? But there needs to be action behind it, or there's a real risk of a dangerous populist movement taking footing even more than it already has, and there being some legitimacy behind it, right? They have to take that away.
Chaparral?
Yes, Santita. What I wanted to say, to put this in real terms for me, because, I have kids, and when my kids were small, I had to choose between working or staying home because daycare was costing me over $2,000 a month, and I was only getting $2,700 a month after taxes working. So I chose to stay home so that way we could afford to. It makes sense. What's $700? So this bill could help parents like me who don't qualify for daycare assistance because you make over $30,000 a year. You don't qualify for daycare assistance. This will help them to be able to put their kids in school and lift themselves out of poverty. So my thing is that the Democrats are not putting these issues on the table so the American people can see it. And they have the ability. The president is the leader of the free world. He has the ability to command any public speaking space he chooses. If he wanted to put this bill forth and make it pass, he could make it pass. All he has to do is just go on there 24/7 at every radio station, every TV station will cover him. He can do it. Why he has to say the urgency of passing this bill and in it. You have talked about what's in the bill, but all we hear on TV is $3.5 trillion. What is that covering? The American people need to know. And my thing is that it is up to the president, the vice president, and those who are in power to put that out there. AOC and all of them need to go out there and be on like Robert said, a blitz, a social media blitz. They have millions of followers. All they gotta do is just keep on putting it and ask everybody to repost, and they will do it. So they have the tools, but I'm looking at if they're not utilizing the tools, this is a real issue for them. Are they willing to go the extra mile for the American people? Are they willing to put their name on the line? Are they willing to have this LBJ moment and push America into a new diaspora? Are they willing to do this? And I don't see it right now. And I'm praying that they do because we need this. We shouldn't be fighting over stuff when we got bridges dilapidated, and we have all of these things where we could create more jobs. They're not even talking about how many jobs by sitting up here rebuilding all of our actual infrastructure. How many jobs is this going to create? This is going to lower the unemployment rate. We're not talking about good things that we're trying to do. This is crazy. This is crazy to me. And I don't understand it because of the fact that we have the ability to do. We have the ability to affect.
Let me come back on everything there. My question to you, Chappelle, is if, I mean, they should be doing everything you're saying and more. I agree. I've got all kinds of ideas as well of what they should have been doing. There's no question about that. My question to you is, when you say they don't want it, the president doesn't really want to pass it, and Democrats don't really want to pass it. When the election comes around in 2022 and 2024, have you been inspired to put them back in office if the alternative is Trump or somebody worse than Trump, more intelligent, more sophisticated politically than Trump? Are you inspired to still support the Democrats, or are you inspired to stay home because the president didn't want it and the Democrats couldn't do it?
Wait, let me jump in right here. You know what? We lived through slavery, okay? So I don't want to hear about Trump and his being an alternative, because you know what? I've lived through horrible things. Our ancestors have lived through horrible things. I now need that to me is not the right choice. We need the Democrats to do the right thing. They come here and they smile. They come to my churches and they clap on the 1 and 3 while I'm on the 2 and 4. They do all that stuff. What I need them to do is the right thing. Period. Full stop. That's it. That's all. You know what? But Trump got more this time than he did the last time because of this kind of craziness. They've got to stop it. That either you're going to do.
Santita.
I did what y'all told me to do. I voted for Biden. I voted for Biden. I did not.
I did too. I voted for Clinton. Yeah, I voted for Clinton, although I hated him in terms of what he did to Reverend Jackson. And
you did.
We have constantly did what we were supposed to do. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of doing what I'm supposed to do and not getting anything in return. Now, I can't tell you what I'm going to do in 2022 because of the fact that we have given them chance after chance after chance after chance, and we have seen nothing to show for it. And so my thing is that my life, I'm being honest only with my life. My life wasn't worse under Trump. It wasn't. He gave me a couple of checks. He lifted me. Hey, look, I got some money from Trump. So my life wasn't that bad. So we have to think about what it is that the Democrats are trying to message. This it's not going to work this time if you say vote for us or go get Trump again. People going to choose to get Trump again because ain't nothing changed when we voted for you. So they have now that they have something to compare, life with Trump and life with Biden. So the Democrats are going to have to show them something. They're not just going to be able to say, fear Trump. They're not going to be able to do it. It's not going to work that same way. So they have to be very careful in what they're doing. So I hope that they're not banking on the fear of strategy for 2022. They will lose.
I think Democrats have to be very careful, and I think we have to be very careful. I think they're overlooking the fact that 96% of Democrats in the House and 96% of the Democrats in the Senate and the president, even though he hasn't done all that he should have done to promote this, they're for what you're talking about. There are only 2 Democrats that are stopping the whole show. 96% of Democrats.
Power. No Democrat should have more power than the president of the United States. So do you mean to tell me that you're letting these 2, like Robert Patillo been saying, stop pulling those federal contracts from Virginia and Arizona, and I bet you they'll start.
Now you're talking. There is no way that McConnell would allow any senators on the Republican side to behave like Manchin and Sinema. They should deny their state money unless they get on board. Absolutely.
And I think ultimately,
look what the Republicans did to Cheney and to Kinzinger for just going on a committee wanting to know what the truth is about January the 6th. Yeah, Schumer should be doing much more.
And he's not.
In terms of and he's not. There's no question about that.
And so when you see them not doing what they could do.
But don't overlook 96% of Democrats in the House and the Senate and in the White House are for the bill. They're not the ones that are holding up the bill.
Yeah, but you know what? But you know what? What the Democrats? You're right. But what the Democrats are guilty of is poor messaging. And Frank, this is an argument that you've had with the Democrats for more than half a century. And you know that they tried. And they tried to bury Reverend Jackson and progressive politics whenever we came to them and said, hey, this is what you need to do. And people are tired of it, Frank. Just tired of it. That's what you hear. You hear that frustration.
Yeah, I was tired of the way they were treating us too, because the alternative, what they told us was get in line. You got no alternative. Get in line.
And you know what? And what we're hearing is a couple of generations later, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
I'm not suggesting it. I'm not suggesting it will work. It won't work. What I'm concerned about is that we add to the idea, to the psychology that it won't work. I don't think we should be adding to the psychology that it won't work.
I think, but at some point,
we need to be encouraging people to fight under whatever circumstances they find themselves.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I'm still encouraging them, but I'm also I'm going to encourage Chaparral and others to give me their frustration, because if I act like they're not frustrated, they are not going to listen to me. How about that? That's not going to happen. Because they don't want to hear that. First, I know you're not suggesting that. I'm saying first thing I got to do is allow them to say, hey, this is bothering me. I need them to do this. It's just because that's part of the problem we have with the vaccines. If you say, you know what, I'm worried about this. Oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. I mean, shut up. Stop it. Why don't you listen to people? That's what happened when black leaders went to FDR. He said, well, we're getting lynched, we're living in Jim Crow. You want us to fight in the Second World War. I hear you, but we really need you to be the cannon fodder here. So we just need, we'll handle this when you get back. What? That's not working. No. The time is now. No. I've got to be able to say to you, this bothers me. I've got to be able to say that. I got to. Anybody still there? No, Frank. I know better than most.
I'm saying I'm frustrated too, and it only makes me fight harder.
Okay, I don't think you hear a passionless Chaparral.
No, not at all.
I think she's fighting real hard. Am I wrong, Chaparral? Chaparral, you there? Oh, did she leave? Oh, wow. When things were just getting hot.
I think we're talking to each other.
Yes, we are now.
Santita, I have to head out too. I have a little guy to get to school who misses you very much.
Cool. Oh, but do you want to say anything before we go? Oh.
Well, I think this is an important conversation. I'd love to dig into this more, right? Because clearly I don't think I talk to folks who aren't politically active, whether it's on the playground or play dates. People don't have the same sense of urgency, right? And we have to understand that we, as activists, as communications professionals, as folks in the media, we have a different perspective than people that aren't calling into your show, right? Yeah. And there's a huge portion of our population that we aren't doing the best job speaking to. And I believe, as Frank said, that we do have to lean in and do more as the folks who have a bigger picture. But Chaparral understands this too. She's very well versed in this legislation. She not only goes out and votes, but supports causes, right? So we have to make sure that the policies are backing up the intent, right? And it doesn't matter if what we say, if what we do is not helping the folks that need it the most, if we're not backing up our words with actions. And it can be demoralizing for new folks that are coming into activism or the system to see, let's say your first campaign was knocking on doors for Kyrsten Sinema right now.
Oh, wow.
You're deflated, right? You have been, lied to, essentially. And you put your precious time, which is money for folks. Knocking on doors for hours and 120 degrees is no joke. I've done it.
Yeah.
If that person can't deliver for you or even have a conversation with you, there's a sense of why am I doing this at all? How is democracy really working for me if these folks aren't showing up? And we have to own that and also do more, right? I think it's a yes and.
I agree. I agree. We've and the Democrats have to look. There's something that the Republicans have figured out. They've figured out messaging. They do their thing. They already have tied up talk radio. For heaven's sake, this is what they do. It's like Democrats get a clue. The template is already there. It's already there. It's already there. It's right there before you. If you just do it. So, well, Frank Watkins, I'm going to give you the final word here. Frank?
I agree with what she said. Yeah, it's very disheartening.
Well, I'm not disheartened. I'm glad to hear Chaparral and Renee and others thinking and pushing. I think that's a great thing. That to me is the upside.
No question.
Because if people
I agree
didn't
with
have
that.
passion,
I got another call coming.
okay, love you. Everybody, if I didn't hear passion from everybody today who called in and the people who are with us, that would make me feel deflated. I feel great. I feel elated because I hear the passion. So this is what I need you to do. I need you to call 202-224-3121. That's the U.S. Congress, okay? Call there. Call there. That's what you need to do. You need to call there today and tell them you want this passed. You don't want any cuts. We can't afford cuts. We can't. The time is long gone for that. They don't cut Boeing. They don't cut Boeing any slack. They give them money. They don't cut corporate America. They give them money. We need help. I mean, call them today. Call them today. Call them today. And I'm putting the number right up here right now for you. And you call them. You call them. You call them. This is your country, land that you love. This is what you must have them do. Oh, Norma Jean, you say the passion is great, but it needs to be done without confusing, maybe less informed into thinking that they didn't do good with at least blocking the ones who were in. We got rid of Trump. Getting rid of Trump, I think, is important, but it's not enough. You know, it's not, you can't. In fact, I don't think that's the answer. You got to replace. You know, let me put it this way. Be careful what you pray for. You just may get it. If you're not very, very specific in your prayers, you end up getting something that I didn't ask for that. Yeah, well, you weren't specific enough. Getting rid of Trump ain't the only answer. No, because people toggled between Trump and Bernie Sanders. They're both populists. The question is, where's the populism going to come from, the left or the right? Right? So at this point, what you need to do is, it's not because Trump has gone on and he's holding court in Florida, but that's not, he is a symptom of a bigger, deeper problem that we have got. A bigger, deeper problem that we have got is that you have the corporatists in the parties, in the Democratic and Republican parties who are running things. The corporatists. Okay? That's what you need to call Manchin and Sinema. They're corporatists. And they could have rolled over. Well, it's hard to roll over Nancy Pelosi. You can't do that. But they were going to force her to disaggregate these bills and roll over the American people. But that's because you're not calling. You've got to call, you got to march, you must make your presence felt. You've got to let them know how you want the vote to go. We're the ones with the power here. So I hear you, get upset, be passionate, all of that. Now don't let your fuel turn you into a fool. And that is not what Chaparral, Renee, and anybody else were doing. Now, be fueled by all of this information and make those phone calls today. That's what you need to do. Because this is your country. It is your government, and it's going to remain your government, and you just letting other people run away with it. Don't let them do it. What are they going to? Are they going to tell you that you can't go? You can't get 2 years of tuition-free college, community college, where you can use those credits and go to a 4-year college, and go and get ahead, and maybe instead of paying $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 or $100,000 or $50,000 a debt, you cut that in half. Oh, come on. You mean to tell me Medicare doesn't cover dental, vision, and hearing? How can you get an exam and not have your eyes examined, not have your teeth examined? Your dentist can look in your mouth and see the state of your health. Crazy. We're the ones who are getting pinched or getting squeezed. In the meantime, corporations are making money hand over fist. That ought to be unacceptable to you. You should not let people treat you so cheaply. We are the ones who have to stop. Don't let people just roll over you. Don't tolerate that in any relationship, whether it's personal or political. Don't let that happen. You are somebody. Not here. You are somebody. I don't care who you are while you're here. You are somebody. And just go on and be somebody and make these people do what you need them to do with your money. Your money. It's your money. It's your money. It's your country. Take it back. Okay? I love you, everybody. I will see you tonight at 6 o'clock. We are going to be doing, talking about R. Kelly. Woo! And we'll continue this conversation too. And we're going to look at the Supreme Court. What is in the docket for them? Because they can have, this Supreme Court can really change life as we know it. They can absolutely overturn Roe v. Wade. They can do that. And it looks like they might be on their way to doing that. Affirmative action they're going to be seeing that. I mean, there is a lot that's at stake here. There's a lot that's at stake. So we need to look at the Supreme Court. I mean, like right now, need to look at it, see who they are, what they're doing. But this will be one of the most consequential terms for the Supreme Court that we have seen in generations, plural, in generations and generations and generations. And these Republicans, they stack to the courts. I ain't mad at them. They dig down in the weeds and they listen to their base even as they shape the narrative, because that's what the corporate media does. They shape the narrative. They're just as guilty. They could push all day, every day, like they do about everything else. They could push all day, every day, what's in the Build Back Better plan. How many of you knew that 2 years of free community college was in that? Most people did not. It's because I read and do all this for you every day that I was like, wow, that's here. You mean to tell me Medicare, they don't cover dental health and vision health and auditory health? Are you serious? Oh, whoa. Whoa, this is a big deal. You mean to tell me that if you come out of prison and you want to start a business, there will be a $5 million fund set aside in the Small Business Administration that you will have access to open up a business, to get some support? So you can get a second chance or a third chance or whatever chance it is? Really? And the Democrats aren't selling that every day. They should have AOC, President Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama, the squad, Bernie Sanders, and starting with the president and the vice president. They should be selling this every day. They should be. That is their job. In the meantime, we got the vice president being chased off the floor of The View. How that happened, I'll never know. That's just bizarre. Because before you even get close to her, you're supposed to be tested and test negative. And that's supposed to be checked. So I don't get that. It bothers me that she got that close to not being in a safe space. That's just ridiculous. In the meantime, you basically had an interview that could have been consequential that was inconsequential. They didn't ask much. Everybody, let's start asking the right questions and start pushing for the right things. Get past what you want and get to what you need first. You don't eat dessert first. You eat your meal first. Right? Okay, think about that. I love you, everybody. See you tomorrow. Well, no, see you tonight at 6 o'clock as we talk about R. Kelly. Love you, everybody. See you tonight and then first thing in the morning. Love you.